Welcome to Mamafuel, the podcast that fuels every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully sparks a few dreams along the way. I'm Ann Ferguson, Chief Nurturer and Mama Mentor at the Centered Mama Project, and your host for this podcast. I'll be sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with beautiful mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Mamafuel, the podcast. My name is Ann Ferguson. I am your host, and I'm really excited to welcome today's guest. Her name is Amy McLaren, and our paths crossed at a live event in Toronto about a month ago at time of recording. And when I heard about Amy long before I met her, and the mission that she has, and the family that she has built, and the life that she and her husband Stu have created, it just made possibility and potential explode in my head. And at this event, as I met Amy and her two beautiful children and heard about just how they set things up and the impact they're making in the world, it made so much sense to invite her on. So Amy, I'm so delighted to have you with us. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
It's fun. So let's get started. Okay, so tell us, what does your life look like right now?
Well, my life right now is a bit crazy. We just got a dog, which I've always had a dog and I've liked them, but when you add a dog into building a charity and building a couple of other businesses and two kids, it's been a bit more complicated.
It's not the same, right?
No, it's like it's like having another kid.
Yeah, who never grows up.
I know. But no, aside from that, I mean, life's crazy right now because we're in the midst of doing a big donor trip for our charity. My husband just came off his big Tribe Live event. So it's been a busy summer, but it's been filled with tons of fun, new experiences and awesome memories made.
So tell us, for people who don't know you, who is your family made up of?
Yeah, so it's myself, and then I'm married to Stu, who you had mentioned before with Tribe. Yeah. So he has an online business, and then we have my biological daughter who's 7. And I say biological just because we also have another son who is 4, and we adopted him from South Africa. So, and our dog. So I guess it's 5 of us now.
Yeah. And your dog came from another country. So you have 3 countries represented.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Between the dog, your
well, actually, you know what? It would be 4 because I grew up in England and moved when I was 10.
Really?
So we've actually, Marla is our first generation Canadian on both of our sides of our kids.
Was Stu born in the UK as well?
Yeah, he was. But he moved when he was, I think he was like 4. I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a bit younger than I was.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't assume that at all. And it's funny, the stories we make up, because Stu McLaren, who is, for people listening, the window through which I've come into contact with you, Amy, has an amazing online business that helps entrepreneurs like me build membership sites as the current incarnation of many, 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 many things that he has done. And so I was invited and was gifted a ticket to this event. And it's what is happening for me in this coming year is I'm going to study with Stu and build this membership site for anyone who's listening, the Mamafuel membership. And I just assumed, because Stu was at the same university as me, that he'd been there for forever and that you'd grown up there forever. So it's funny to hear the things that we assume instantly about people, isn't it?
Yeah. And you know what? You do. And it's funny because I moved when I was 10 and all of my family is still over there. Like my mom, my dad, and my brother and I are the only family here. And when I moved over and I was 10, you don't want to be different, right? Like you fight that one. You want to fit in and you don't want to be like the outcast. And now here I am, like 38, wishing that I maybe still had a bit of my accent because it's so
don't
who I am, but I don't. No, I'm like still Canadian, but except I say a few words. And then when I visit family, sometimes a little bit's come back, but no, I'm proud British and hope they win today because I know they play soccer today. So
yes.
Stu and I are cheering them up.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing, the World Cup final is going to be amazing.
Yeah,
when it happens.
Sure.
And I think it's going to be the UK, which is my soul's home, really, is London. I went there when I was 30 and met my husband there. He was in Barcelona, but But yeah, if I didn't have two young girls, I would be back there in a flash. I love it there. Love the countryside. I just love everything. And I'm French. So if it's UK against France, for me, it'll be like, doesn't matter who wins. It'll be good.
That's awesome.
So you chose to augment your family through adoption, and your little guy is gorgeous. It was really fun seeing him and his sister interacting and seeing their two personalities play out on this stage in front of, for people who are listening, 600 people, to be fair. It's a big crowd to be standing in front of. What made you decide to go the adoption route?
You know what? It's funny. Both Stu and I, we've been married almost 11 years, together almost 20. And when we met in university, we both had this desire to adopt. We had talked about it even before having Marla, before having our own, or that discussion. We actually wanted to adopt first. And I don't know what it was. I knew I wanted to adopt from Africa, and he felt the same way too. I think it just came from a lot of the traveling I had done and seen been in orphanages and homes and all these kids that, desperately need loving parents. And so we knew that we wanted to have our own as well, but then adopt as well. So I don't know. I think it's just from traveling, and we both had that want out of Africa. It was somebody from Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you, so I know that you have a deep connection with the African continent. You've traveled there a lot, and through a foundation that you guys have built, you built a charity called, which has just changed its name to Village Impact. And was World Teacher Aid before. And that it seems to me, the story I make out from the outside is that you've really married your two passions, which is on the one hand, travel, which it sounds like you've done your whole life. And on the other hand, teaching, which is what you trained as and it was your profession. Yeah. And now you've blended those two things together. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because that must have been quite a journey to go from the classroom to now doing what you do.
Yeah, no, totally. It's actually funny that you say that. Sorry, my headphones are annoying. I actually just resigned from teaching this year. I haven't been in the classroom for over 3 years. I've been helping Stu with his business and then also running the charity. Both Stu and I volunteer our time at the charity, and it's grown substantially over the last few years. But we, you know what? Tell me, I feel like I'm going off in a tangent. Can you say that again?
Tangents are good, and my question was super long. What was the journey for you to go from being a classroom teacher to now morphing your passion for travel and your passion for teaching into what you've created?
Yeah. So like you had said, you guessed it. I'm addicted to travel. My husband said if I wasn't married to him, I would be a gypsy living abroad. And honestly, I probably would. But that's where I think we marry the two together, in that being an online entrepreneur and having your own business allows for the flexibility to travel as much as we do when we want to do, which kind of settles both kind of things. But no, when I started the charity, I'd just seen how much need there was overseas and how far a dollar could go. And at that time, I was teaching grade 1. I've taught grade 1 for like 11 years. And I just wanted to, like you said, marry those two, where I could show those kids in the classroom just how big the world is. And when I started, it wasn't necessarily to help those overseas, but it was for them to gain kind of this global outlook on life, and not being such kind of in the small bubble that I think a lot of people live in still, because there's so much going on in the world, and not just to help, but to learn from other people and learn from cultures and help. Yes, help of course where you can, but then learn from other people too. So it kind of started with little fundraisers in the classroom, and then it's just grown as Stu's business has grown, and the business we've grown or built together. The charities kind of come alongside of that, and now does play a big part in his business and our life.
So how do you, before we dive in deep into the charities work, because I think that's just a really interesting evolution for you guys, because on the one hand, you as a family, you and Stu have built you built a huge business. Stu built a massive business with his partners. And while you were teaching and having a baby and adopting a child in Africa, like these are high stress and high delight and excitement moments in any couple's life and in any family's life. And now you've added a dog just to mix it up a little bit.
I know, we're crazy.
I did the same thing a couple of years ago, and I now recognize the madness of the whole thing. We'll probably hear him grunting outside the door in a little while. But so you've been doing all of these things, and yet at the same time managing, it seems, to find a balance between what drives Stu and his passion with business and being of service in that way, and your passion of just get me on the next plane somewhere and let's go help somebody and let's get to know and learn. It sounds like you wanted to show the children in your classroom the value of difference and the value of that other people had things to teach us. Because often we can think in the Western world that we've got it figured out and we're these benevolent creatures who come and like give to others. But actually,
no, and we don't, my goodness, like everybody can learn, like whether it's in business or like every day we're learning or reading or, and I think it's important to show those kids, not only in my classroom, but for my kids to see, mom and dad always learning, making mistakes, learning from other people, looking at other cultures and how they live differently. And that's awesome. Like we can learn from that. There's, it's good to be different.
So how do you involve your kids in your passion for travel then?
Well, my husband often jokes because Marla, my daughter, is like a replica of me. I dropped her off at pony camp this week. We were chatting about that. And she says to me, she's 7, just turned 7. Mom, is this like an overnight camp? Can I stay the week? And I'm just like, no, not yet. But I was on a plane at 9 by myself going overseas and visiting family. So I can see her in me, like, which is kind of terrifying, but I love it and exciting. But so we involve them in the charity trips. They're coming with us to Kenya next week. Marla's been once with me before. So this will be Sam's first time back to the continent of Africa, but he's traveled with us a ton. We involve them in, and when Stu speaks at different events, as a family, we try to make sure he's not away too much in a month. He does travel and sometimes it's a bit busier, but if it comes to a point where he's been away for over like a week or something, then the kids and I'll get on a plane and go down and spend time with him, or we make it more of a family trip. So when he does his mastermind, we'll often take the kids and then he'll work for a few days and then we'll spend a few days there as well as the family. So we kind of like mix it up, and sometimes things are meshed together, but then we also like to try and make sure that within that year span, and we find we have to plan everything out like a year or 2 years in advance, but we always try to make sure we have like a family trip that's not connected to anything business, charity, like anything related. And then a mom and dad kind of getaway, no kids, sleep in. Well, you know how that is.
Yes.
So it's for us, that's very important too, which is why we plan out so far ahead. But yeah, we mix them. They kind of come along to everything. You saw them on the stage. Marla was great this year on the stage. She was much more involved in it. And last year she did speak a little bit, but not as much as she did this year. So it's fun watching their confidence grow too, and being in front of like 600-700 people. When we do the charity presentations, if they happen to come to us on one of those trips, they'll often get up with us too and do something for it. And they've spoken, I think we had one crowd of like 3,000 people.
Wow.
So it's just fun to watch as a mom too, how much she's grown and how much the kids have grown. Because that was what you saw at Tribe Live this year, wasn't last year. She was on the stage, but then she quickly ran off. And this year I felt like she wanted to stay longer. Maybe next year she'll teach something. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, this year she got up on the stage, and one thing that I really thought was as a mom, was a really beautiful thing to see was that she and her friend had spent time making necklaces and bracelets and chokers. The friend kept reminding everybody, and chokers, with these beautiful wooden beads, and we're selling them for Village Impact in order to raise funds and also to have a little bit of money for them. And I remember going to the back of the room, and there were like throngs of people back there buying. I came home with 2 necklaces for the girls, and they've hung them on their bulletin boards, and they're all happy to have them. And I was saying to her, like, you guys have made some serious cash here. This is awesome. How much, do you know how much money you've raised? And I don't remember how much what did she say at the event?
Oh, because I think she raised $364, but I think the way she said it was like 364,000 or something.
Yeah,
something.
Really cute. And everybody's like, wow, that's awesome.
It's a good business.
Yeah, that's a lot of necklaces. Keep at it, girlie. You're only 7 or 6 at the time. And you know, she said, I said, you know, what do you think you're gonna buy something with a little bit of the money for you? And she said, yeah, I'm gonna buy this book. And she told me about this book that my girls have been listening to, and we had a conversation about it after. Like, oh, that's so cool. Are your parents going to read it to you? She's like, no, I'm reading it myself. And meanwhile, my, 8, almost 9 and 11-year-olds are just dying to get their hands on these books. And when I was in Canada, I went the day after Tribe and bought them for the girls, and their heads exploded. So I thought that was really cool that your kids have this very unusual opportunity to have platforms to be in front of people, to start building your confidence from day dot. They really are creating that and building that up, and seeing that adults, that it's safe to be up in front of adults, and that you can talk and people will listen, and that what you have to say is important, and that people are kind and participative and responsive. Yeah. And I think that's really special for them.
Yeah, no. And I'm so grateful for that, because I think as a mom, especially raising women, like, confidence is so much. Like, confidence can give, even like, I don't like getting up on stage as much as Stu does. Stu loves it. I like it. I enjoy it, but not as much as he does. But like, it's very nerve-wracking for me, but it's like, if you have confidence in something and you can pass that down to your kids, you can get so much further when you have confidence in anything, really. Yeah.
And that confidence, I would imagine, as you, I suspect, have traveled quite a lot on your own. Mm-hmm. When you are traveling as a woman on your own, you got to have it. Otherwise, you won't leave home.
No, you have to have it for sure. And that's traveling alone too, I think it's great. I've done it a few times, and you meet some awesome people, but you got to have confidence, I think, in every day in life, as much as you can anyway. Although sometimes it's hard. It can be really hard.
Yeah, sure. Well, but that's life, right? Whether you travel to, obviously, if you keep your world in air quotes small, you need that size of confidence, and the bigger it goes, and the more you stretch, the more variety maybe you'll have in your challenges and in the places that you'll need confidence. But you need it all the time, unless you keep your world super small. So I would love to know, tell us first of all about World Teacher Aid. How did you go from doing a little bit of fundraising in the classroom to get your kids, which is interesting. I didn't realize that was the genesis of what you were doing, to get the kids in your classroom to have a broader worldview. How did you go from that to now building schools and having an impact on entire villages, which is why you've changed the name, right?
Yeah. So when I started, it was very much just, I taught in a little like country town, and a lot of the kids had never even, like, some had never even been to Toronto, which was like an hour away. It started from that. And then I did galas, I think many charities do. You start out with these little ventures that raise, quite a bit of money at the time. Like, my gala would raise $14,000.
Wow.
And then we did a webinar, back in the day, like a teleseminar. So this was like 9 years ago, but aging myself now. And Stu, at that time, reached out to 6 or 7 of his friends and asked if they would mind sharing their predictions for the year coming up. And this was like in December. And they're like, yeah, sure. So we did this whole teleseminar, and people shared their predictions, and people paid to listen to this call. And that was where we raised about $14,000, and we took it down to El Salvador that Christmas, and we gave some away to a school. We helped reconstruct a school. We did a lot of different things. We helped at orphanages. And it was on that flight back that Stu had said, I understand now kind of what you want to do. So we did the same kind of similar format again, only we raised double that the second year. And then at that time, we were running it through Stu's business, because he's like, we need to start a charity. This is like ridiculous, because we're paying taxes on this money that's coming in, and it was just getting complicated.
And it's not helping, right? That money isn't, I mean, obviously it's helping from an infrastructure perspective in Canada, but it's not actually helping the people you're raising the money for.
No, and so it was kind of, we were just going in like dabbling really and not knowing that we wanted to give back. And then through all my travels, I had met somebody who had a connection with Kenya and another organization I had worked with. So we ended up going over to Ghana first, actually, and then Kenya. And then that's where we met the NGO that we worked with. And when we were doing some work over there, I've always had the education stuff. Health stuff is really important too. But for me, with a teacher background, and when you give to a classroom or education, it's something like that gift that keeps giving and giving and giving. Like it never ends. Like those classrooms will be there for years, like helping so many students. So we were in Kenya at our first location, and it was just like a field. And I remember saying to Irene, who we were working with at that time, that I really wanted to build a school in that location. And Irene said to me, that lady I still work with to this day, she's like, Amy, but that's going to cost a lot of money. Like to build a whole school is about $125,000. And she's like, do you want to partner with another NGO? And I was like, no, I want to do it by myself. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, thinking. And like we had just filed our last tax return, and it was for like $40,000, which was years ago. And Stu looks at me and he was just like, Amy, you have $360 in the bank account? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, we'll figure it out. And we just managed to get 12 amazing donors together. Each donated about $12,000 each to build a classroom. We built one school in that location within like 6 months. Wow. And then those people came over with us to Kenya, and they saw like the impact of this one school that I had in this community. And then I like to say it's like 100% retention, because all of those donors that donated again and built the high school for this community. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it started, because then word spread a little bit, and like Stu and his business as it was growing, I mean, his network of people and friends kind of coming into his life were interested and wanted to help out. And that's kind of how it's grown. And now we speak together on some of his great friends' stages at their events to help raise money. And what I love about it is we've managed to keep it pretty small. I mean, we've raised almost $3.5 million, which blows my mind. Whoa. I know. Isn't that crazy? And most of that has been in the last like 3.5, 4 years. Amazing. Which is, it's unbelievable. And it really, truly is a token to like this incredible community that has just continued to surround our vision and like what we want to do. And like you had said, it went from World Teacher Aid to when I was beginning and it was all about teachers, to now being Village Impact, because we've really seen these villages have such an impact with what we've been able to help them with. And then also people that are supporting, like our good friends like Russell Brunson, Jeff Walker, Michael Hyatt, like some of these big people that have really big influence. And I mean, even Stu with his tribe community, all these people that have an influence in their niche, or they're bringing them kind of over in their villages over to us. And like for this trip we're doing, Stu's bringing his tribe team. We have Russell bringing some of his mastermind group over. So it really is like all these villages coming together to have this impact. So it did, like everything, start off very small. And now we just closed our books for last year, and we just didn't hit 1 million. It was like 950. I'm like, I really wanted to hit like 1 million. But, it's just grown over time. And then I think it's grown too as Stu and I have changed. Our kind of, he hasn't really changed his career, but like I started off as a teacher, and teaching's awesome. I loved it when I was there, but now I've kind of grown and I'm really enjoying Stu's business and being a part of podcasts and things like this, and helping other women or learning from other women and growing a sense of business and the charity, to where now I'm like, I couldn't imagine going back to teaching, because I love that I get to travel to Kenya and that I get to do stuff like this. And that's more of kind of what we're up to now. Whereas, 10 years ago, I was just having Marla, I was teaching, Stu was starting Wishlist Member in his basement. Like, it was, so it's just changed over time. But
you're a long way from the small town primary school classroom that you started in, and how amazing that through a simple human connection, because that's what it all boils down to, through a simple human connection with Irene in Kenya, you decided that that was the place that you were choosing, because there is so much need in the world. And one of the things that I wondered, but you've answered, is how, like, why Kenya? And how did you choose to build schools there? Because if I understood correctly, the schools that you're building are in villages of displaced people following civil war. Is that right?
Yeah. So we did go to Ghana one year before I met Irene, and we helped at a school there. But I never felt comfortable. Like, we only helped once, and the money wasn't going to the right spot. Like, it was only, and not was only, but compared to what I send today, it was a small amount, but I didn't feel comfortable with it. It was kind of shady. And I'm like, this isn't right. Like, something isn't right. So then I met Irene, and Irene, literally, I've sent her a large portion of that money that we've raised. And she sends me back spreadsheets every week, down to the penny of where every single dollar has gone. She doesn't miss like anything. She is like the Mother Teresa of Kenya. Like, she helps other NGOs too, but I couldn't do it without her. But she is truly amazing. And so I totally 100% trust her with every single dollar. And she sends me always the reports back on it. So we ended up in Kenya because that same organization, when it didn't go well in Ghana, said, well, maybe meet Irene in Kenya. I think she'll help you. So we went to Kenya, and I met her in the House of Wayne, which is our hotel we've used several times in Nairobi. And we had breakfast, and we really hit it off, and we went to visit that first school. And then it just kind of, I've traveled with her. She's been a huge part of our life moving forward. Well, now and moving forward will be. So.
So what are the biggest challenges that are faced by those communities, and specifically the mums in those communities?
Yeah. So to go back a little bit with those, so where we help with those communities, they're called individual displaced persons. So all the schools are built in these, what they call IDP camps. So back in 2004, they had really bad election violence, because people they were in their homes, and literally they were getting burned down, and the government would come up to them, or people come say, you have to leave. And they had to leave their homes and everything behind. And then the government gave them a new piece of land. And this land was out in the middle of nowhere, and they basically had to start over again. So all they got was a tin roof from the government. The community had to rebuild their homes and start over. So, like, can you imagine just being at home and then having to get up and leave because it's just too dangerous? And I mean, a lot of these people were like doctors, nurses, like people with great professions, or they had a great farming spot for their crops. And now they're moved to these, in some of our schools, the land's horrible, but that's where the government put them. And that's they have to kind of start all over again. So we've come in and put schools in those communities that have helped build up that community, if that makes sense.
Yes, it totally makes sense. And I love the story that Stu tells about, that if you want, you can, if you want to help, that's great, but it's going to cost a lot of money, to have a teacher. And I think it was like $100 a month, right?
Yeah. And what's great now is you can, and with the partnership that we have with the government now is we'll come in and we'll build the schools, but then they will supply the teacher salary. So when we started out years ago, we were doing teacher salaries. And then now it's kind of a better model in that we're working with the government, and it's a lot of community building, and it's not reliant on a donor paying every month because the structure is there. Yeah.
Okay. So people have been displaced under horrific situations, conditions, taken to not very hospitable territory physically, lost their lives, their profession, lost their lives. Some of them have lost their lives, but they've lost their livelihood and everything that they know. What do they need the most? What do the mamas need the most?
Yeah, so something we've actually just started. We're piloting a few new things this time, but we just hired a counselor about it's almost a year ago, about 8 months ago, to help with some of the mamas and some of the parents in the community, because a lot of these families have been, some of the stuff they went through and some of the health challenges they're facing, mental health, all that kind of thing they're facing. We saw that in our students. So we hired a counselor that has been working with a few of our schools, and she meets with the moms regularly. She meets with the families. she meets a school, she does different classes to help that way. So that's kind of, and then, but what's interesting is when you say, what do the moms need? I want to write a book on this one day, because the moms are awesome. Like the moms run those communities. Like Carrie, who is my director right now, has been in Kenya for 2 weeks, and I'll be joining her on Saturday. But she was telling me, and I've always said and I know it's a team effort, but really the moms in these communities that we help, they know everything, and they are the backbone to a lot of stuff in those communities. And I think for us, it's by supplying a counselor to help with some family stuff, or that helps. What the moms really need, though, that's a good question. I think the moms are good. Like I really see them as like the backbone of the community, and they all help each other. The trust and the relationships that these moms have, I always say that, as a mom, we can learn from, because, not all moms are nice. Sometimes people can be mean.
Yeah.
And then like on Facebook, when you see on Facebook, like people just are so judgmental about how people parent. And it's like, it's awful. I've seen, you see it on Facebook sometimes, and you're just like, oh, really? Like, why can't you just love each other? You know what I mean? And these moms, the relationships that they have with each other, the relationships with the community, with the kids, it's inspiring. Like they could teach us a lot in what they do.
Well,
so that's my mom rant. Sorry.
No. But you've just exactly, I mean, you and I have I have unwittingly brought out exactly one of the things that I was talking about before, which is this kind of sense that we in the Western world can go and help. And my question was like, what do they need? And you're answering, well, actually, how can they help us? And duh. So it sort of set me back on my heels, because that's exactly what we were saying before, that we have this, some of us, and obviously I've just done it, even with the best of intention, have this sense that we could, because we live in this modern era, and we could go and bring our technology and bring all of these things, all of these air quotes advances, which probably aren't so helpful actually. And
but sorry, I don't, but you know what, when you say that's in the moms, but the communities, like, so what we're doing now, I mean, they do, the schools that we built, they've needed those schools. And then some of the stuff we're supplying them with, they definitely need. And then some of the stuff we're doing now, because what we have noticed in our schools, like the kids don't get out very often. It's kind of like like when you go back to like my primary teaching in grade 1, where the kids weren't getting out of the classroom. It's kind of like you go now to some of these schools, and they just haven't really been to the city. Because they can't get there, and it's like they don't have cars. Like they have trucks or bikes they might jump on the back of, but they don't have funds to be able to afford to get on the back of the bike. So what we're kind of working on now with some more pilot stuff is putting in field trips for the families and the kids and the moms and their kids, where they can actually get on a bus and go into Nakuru and go into the town and visit with some different businesses, or just get out on a field trip like we did with the moms, like I did with my kids, and you probably do with your kids, right? Yeah. So it's, again, building that bond as a family, but then also, giving them a bit of resources to help widen their perspective of the world, and just helping them, because when they finish our high school, they could go to university, they could go to college, but then we're trying to also, while working with the community, because I think that's so important too, but giving them different opportunities that way to kind of say like, look, hey, there's lots of opportunity. You don't necessarily have to go to university. Mm-hmm. You could start a business. You could do this. So by getting them out of like their environment and into some new stuff with their moms or with their school helps a lot too.
They can see the possibilities. Mm-hmm. But what you were saying earlier about how the moms really band together and are the backbone, and they know everything that's going on, and they're the network, like they're the infrastructure, in a way, the human infrastructure. Reminds me of a really great article that I read that when I was in the early stages of creating the Centered Mama Project, which is going to change its name as well to Mamafuel overall, which is the name of this podcast. So there you go. I've just announced it.
Yeah, awesome. I love it.
Live and on air. Is that this whole idea of, I want to change the way that we at Mamas treat ourselves, first of all. I just literally, before getting on the call with you, was on a call with my parenting coach, Leslie Potter, who's one of my very early interviewees in the podcast. I think she was episode 4 or 5. And I've been working with her every single Wednesday night at 7:30 for 6 years because I don't know how to be a mom. Like I was never a mom before I became a mom. And so motherhood brings us, I was saying to a friend of mine I did a yoga teacher training with, and she was saying, I'm not sure if I want to have kids. And I said, look, if you're not sure, then really think about it. Because even those of us who have wanted, like I've wanted my entire life, and I don't know if you were like this, I've wanted kids my whole life. And in fact, I knew I was going to have girls, and like it was very clear to me. The kids are like, they have this huge mirror that they hold up to you constantly, and they never put it down. They don't mean it. They just hold this big mirror up to you, and you can look away as much as you want, but that mirror is always there. And so you get these opportunities to heal all of your own crap. So I talk to my parenting coach a lot by email, by sometimes I'm like, I just lost it, and or this is going on and it's really intense and I'm not sure how to handle it. And she was reminding me again today that this idea of kindness and of community has to start on the inside. So my mission with Mamafuel, the podcast, and everything that I do is to change how we treat ourselves first, and then how we treat each other because of that meanness that you were talking about, which doesn't even happen to have to happen only on social media. It happens.
It happens in the parking lot at school. It happens everywhere. You're out with everywhere. You feel like you're judged if they're crying about something, or
you're judged if you're breastfeeding in their bag. You're judged if you're breastfeeding in their small. You're judged if you're breastfeeding in public. You're judged if you're bottle feeding. You're judged if you're like. There's just it's like it's kind of a no matter what you do, somebody thinks they know better, and this idea of knitting together a community. And it's why what I created initially was called the Virtual Village, like the Centered Mamas Virtual Village online on Facebook, because I wanted, and I still want, and it's what I'm building with Mamafuel and going to be launching, thanks to Stu's teachings, a membership later this year. So while we're announcing things, let's just talk about it. I don't even know what it's called yet, but it's going to be a membership with the whole idea that you have a village of support in your pocket 24/7. You're on your phone anyway. So you might as well dive into a place where it's safe and loving and you're held and seen and supported and encouraged. And you can learn things in a way that isn't threatening or belittling or judgy or any of that stuff. And I guess it could be easy to idealize the concept of the village and think that, it's so great to be in a village. There are drawbacks also to being in a village and all the mamas knowing all the things. Like the thought of that kind of makes me go, people know all my business. But on the other hand, when you need something, then you have people there, right?
Yeah, it's better to have people there than to be by yourself struggling with it, because I think a lot of moms don't talk about it. I know for me, I was one of those people that I didn't want kids because I didn't want it to change my travel life. And for me, I was like, no, that's always been number one. And I didn't want to change what I wanted to do every day. And then I kind of changed my mindset a bit. I had a part of me that did want kids, obviously, for me anyway. But then I realized like I was letting too many people put their opinions on me about being a mom and saying, oh, you can't travel anymore. Now you have kids. And now I was like, well, I'm going to show you. So like, here we are. Marla's been on like 40 flights. We've traveled a ton as kids. And I mean, I don't let that hold me back. Yes, traveling with kids gets a little more trickier and you have to, sometimes you have a bit more patience. But if you plan for those expectations and you kind of know what to expect, or you don't hold anything, have these crazy expectations of it being this certain thing.
Fantasy.
Sometimes it's not that.
Fantasy kids on the fantasy trip that goes super well and easy and everybody's happy and grateful.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not, I mean, it's, for me, it was, I changed the way with that. And now, the kids fit into our life and how we want to run it. And of course they go to sports and do that stuff, but it's very much also what, how Stu and I went. It's not, it's still about them to some extent, but they need to learn that life isn't, it's not all about them. It's about us as a family unit and what's best for our family, or what's best at that time. And sometimes it's not taking you to soccer because it doesn't fit right here or something. So, for me, I was the opposite. And now, like, I can't imagine life without them and all that good stuff. But I mean, it was hard at the start, for sure.
Yeah. And it's something that I, on the other hand, totally fell into that uber attached parent. My husband traveled 80% of the time and I had no family around. So I was all the things, and I was really good at my job and a type A, great client service person in the PR firms I worked in. And so I just applied that same mentality to be a great customer service person to my kids, Yeah. And I exhausted myself and I burnt myself out really, really, really badly. And I have swung the pendulum the other way in this discovery of, oh my gosh, you can create an online business. Oh my gosh, you can do things. And doing things like going to Tribe was a perfect example. So Tribe is the event, Tribe Live, the event that I was at, that's Stu, where I met you and Stu. And it was the weekend of my kids' school play. And our oldest daughter is dyslexic and her needs weren't being met as well as they could be at the school she was at. We love the school that they both have been at since forever, but they don't have a special needs department yet. And so we needed to find something, another option for her, and an alternative opened up in another school. So this is the end of her. So she's leaving at the end of grade 7 and everybody else is staying till the end of grade 8. So it's a big deal, this last end of school, like end of year play. And so I had arranged everything so that I would go to the Thursday night and I would fly in because it was starting Friday, and I would be there at like 7 on Friday, not realizing that registration was Thursday and it started early, like really early on Friday morning. And it was this thing, like this opportunity again that has come up for me over and over of like, oh my God, I need to be there. What does this say about me as a mom? Even though educated, worldly, well-traveled, intelligent, well-read, all the things. I have all the self-help in the world in my office. But still that pull of, does this mean that I'm being selfish? Does this mean that I am a bad mom? Will they remember this will it mean that they feel like they're not important? Because I went to Toronto for the weekend and I was talking to my husband about it because I was all sort of in a turmoil about it over dinner. He'd been away. And so he came back and he was like, you're not asking me if I think you should go, are you? And I was like, I don't know, because it's the last year for our big girl, and I don't know. And the little one was really emotional because her big sister's leaving the school, and like there's a lot at play, right? A lot of emotion. And he was like, rebook your flight, just go. No, but it's going to cost more money, because of course I had a great deal and a great flight on the way, and I had to change it, but I did. And honestly, it was like a free pass. And I threw myself into that weekend with everything I had in me. I ended up joining the next program that Stu was offering and connecting into that so that I can finally launch this membership that I've been dreaming of and have now announced on air live. So yeah, Stu would be like, what's the launch date? The launch date is the 1st of October. There you go.
That's amazing. You should have a party.
We could tell Stu. You could tell Stu. I announced on my podcast, which is going live on air in just a couple of weeks. How's that for pressure? My palms are sweaty just from saying that. But it was that weekend of like, and it was home. I was in Toronto, which is the place that I spent the first 10 years of my adult life. So it feels like the place I became me in a way.
Yeah.
And it was like rediscovering me and rediscovering all of the parts of me that aren't involved in being a mom. And I'm still a mom and I still love my girls. But seeing you, thank you. But seeing you guys up there on the stage, I was like, this is the level of what I want to be. This is where I want to be playing, because I want to be able to give this to my kids too. Like that's not the because. The because is because I just want to be playing at that level.
Yeah.
And also look at all of the richness that it brings, and look at how when you build something, when you follow your dream, and there are so many moms, some of whom I've even interviewed for the podcast before, like Emma, who was my very first interviewee, who is a dear friend, who is a singer-songwriter, mom of 3, met her in Geneva, had to go back for financial reasons because Geneva costs a fortune. So she and her 3 kids have gone back. Her husband stayed here. So she's in Australia with the kids. And she's finally written some albums and is cranking out songs, and she's following her dream now that her kids are, that little bit older. I think her youngest is a year younger than Nina. So he's 9 or 10. And just to have that permission to be big and take up space and get on a stage, be it real or virtual. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you and Stu make time for you and Stu. And
you definitely have to. And I think, you know what I think it is too, that kids, no matter how old they are, they pick up on everything. And if you're not happy, like you said, from the inside and doing what you love to do, then the kids aren't going to be happy. Like they feed off everything. Like if, Stu and I mean, we have a great relationship, but then like if something happened, like they, oh, well, what are you doing? Like, and we'll have conversations about business that get heated. And then they think you're arguing. I'm like, I'm not arguing. I just see his opinion differently. But it's kids, they feed off everything. And what Stu and I have always said, if you're not happy, the kids won't be happy. But if you're happy inside and out and you're enjoying what you're doing and you're following your passion, they see that excitement. They go with it. Like they follow it and they feed off it. So like for me with traveling, they've seen me go out and travel with my friends, or they've seen me go to Panama for a week by myself just in December. And like, oh, mom just went to Panama for the week, and I'm going to Morocco on a bike tour. That's like a crazy adventure in October with 2 other moms. But they see me do that stuff all the time, and they see how much it lights me up and how much I love it. And with the charity stuff, that it becomes a part of like who we are as a family. And, seeing their mom happy makes them happy too. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, totally. And it's something that played out for me around this weekend, because I was talking to my parenting coach just before I was going to leave. So I was leaving on the Thursday. So I had my call on the Wednesday, and as is often the case, I'm making dinner. And so she's on like FaceTime talking to me and the kids, because she's known us. Never forget any parenting book. When you have a parenting coach who knows you and talks to you every single week, like they get in there and they know your family really well. Best advice ever. And we were talking, and I was saying, I feel torn. And I tell my girls, like, I feel torn because I feel like maybe I should, part of me wants to stay and go to your end of year play. And Carolina, my oldest, said to me, but mommy, we want you to go because we want you to be happy. And I just was like, oh,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like that, not that I needed her permission, but it was that next level of her seeing what you just said, her knowing that I was going to go away and have a great time and come back and tell them about it. And it's the same thing. I'll always say to them, like, you don't want me to leave, but what happens when you go stay over at so-and-so's house and you come back and you tell me all about it? Did you miss me when you're away? And they're like, because they're like, are you going to miss us? And I'm like, probably not. I'm probably not going to miss you because I'm going to be having such a great time. And I was only gone 3 nights. So it wasn't that, or 4 nights. It wasn't that long and they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, when you go play at so-and-so's house, you're having so much fun that you're happy to come home, but you're in it when you're in it. Right. And so that's a really important lesson, I think, for them to be able to know that we are all separate people doing our separate things, coming together out of choice and love, and sharing that energy and those amazing experiences.
Yeah. And it's okay to be different. And it's okay like to have different things and love different things. And then to share those maybe common core things that you love to do together as a family.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's totally awesome. So I have 2 more questions for you, because I know you've got to go to a pony camp pickup and a cooking camp pickup.
And you know what? You want to hear something that's kind of embarrassing? I pulled into pony camp this morning and I was going too fast down the driveway and I got in trouble. and Marla's in the car and she's like, Mom, what are they saying? I'm like, it's okay. Mommy was driving a little fast this morning. I need to slow down when I go in the driveway. So when I go to pick her up tonight, we were running a little late. I don't think I was going that fast, but I got pulled off.
Because you're probably raising up the dust on the drive.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, you're right. I was going too fast. I will. Anyway.
Always learning. So one of the things that I was reading about in preparation for our conversation was this Right to Give program that you have. Is that something that's still current and running?
Yeah. So we just finished we do it once a year. And it's a program that I started again when I started in teaching. And I have this, like my daughter loves to read. She reads at a crazy level. She's obsessed with novels. She just loves reading. And I've always wanted to empower kids to read in my classroom. So when I started the project, it's basically 5 classrooms that come together to write one story. So one classroom writes the introduction, one writes the problem, one writes the solution, one writes the ending, and the 5th one does the illustrations. And then we compile them up and we put them into a book, and then we have it available on Amazon and stuff. And then we sell them, and then all the kids' names go in them. Then of course, all the aunts and the uncles and the moms and the dads want to buy them because their names are in them. and they're published authors. So we started that program quite a few years ago now. And I started it by just grabbing like 4 or 5 friends, and we did an email thread. And then it kind of evolved to creating a members area through wish lists, once you started, of course. And it's grown. Like, I mean, Scholastic Education came on board with us, and they publish 1 book a year for the program. We've published over 100, and I think we're 160 books. And we've involved thousands of kids, not only from Toronto or from Ontario. We've had kids from Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia, France, and we've done French books. So the great thing is, because of the internet, it doesn't matter where you are, right? So these books, 1 book would be created, I think 1 book created by like some kids in South Korea, England, like some place in Florida, and then Italy. So like, it doesn't matter where the kids were. If they wanted to participate, then they got into the members area, and we like set them all up, and then shipped out the books. So it's been a great program. It's been a bit of like a love program, because compared to other stuff we do, it's not for the charity financially. It doesn't bring in a ton of money, but it brings in. We're kind of trying to systemize it a little better, but it brings in enough to contribute a classroom a year, possibly more, which is still, it's still enough. So that's kind of our other little project. And that's kind of taken on kind of people when they hear of Right to Give, they didn't link it back to World Teacher Aid then or Village Impact. It's kind of its own thing. But it's just another way to get children into reading and the love of reading, but then also to think again of who the books are going for. Because we'll take some of those books over to Kenya. Not a ton of them, like probably a few copies of every one for the 2 new schools we're opening in a couple of weeks. And then we take pictures of the kids reading them in Kenya, and then we like send that back to the kids wherever they were on the site and stuff. So
if there are any parents or teachers who are listening who would like to get involved, because I can think of Amelia's classroom teacher, Miss Sarah, if you're listening, I'm talking to you. Thinking about specific teachers who might be interested in participating in this and in giving their kids this broader worldview and contributing. Wouldn't it be amazing to contribute to building a classroom for kids in Kenya? Where do they go, and how do they get involved?
So if they go to righttogive.com and then there's a Get Involved tab, I think they can hit there too.
Okay. All right. And if anybody wants to know more about Village Impact, where do they go?
So you can either email myself, Amy at Village Impact, or Carrie, who is my operations manager. She started as my assistant, but is quickly gone up to help me run the charity. So Carrie at CAREY at Village Impact.
.com, .org,
.com or .org. They're both the same. Okay. For us, we've got both. And then you can go to villageimpact.com and check on the contact us page as well.
Yeah, and that's where you can find great pictures of the schools, and there's videos of different communities that you're working in. And awesome. Okay, so my last question is where, and I always think I know the answer, and the answer is never what I think. So let's see.
Now this is pressure.
So where do you get your Mamafuel?
I get mine, I think, it's from travel, but it's from meaningful travel. It's for when, like, in a couple of weeks when I go, like on Saturday and when we do our trip, it's seeing people enjoy what I've kind of helped create. So it'll be seeing people at those villages and the kids and the donors interact and seeing them see the difference that they've had. That's kind of inspires me to keep going. Because I think you need, it's basically seeing that. I mean, when we adopted Sam, that's a whole nother story that took 8 years for that to happen. And to get the fuel for that, it was like always going back to those images of what I wanted to create as a family and thinking about those things and those memories that I wanted to make. So now I go into seeing it, experiencing it, and just being in the moment.
Yes, It totally makes sense. Being present is an amazing way to fuel, because we spend a huge amount of energy. We shovel it down the rabbit hole of social media, and we shovel it into the rabbit hole of worry and anxiety, and we shovel it into the rabbit hole of what other people think, instead of taking that energy and turning it inwards in kindness and just giving to ourselves, irrespective of what other people think. because it feels good. And when we're good, the kids are good, like you said.
Yeah, no, totally true.
Well, I know that you have a slow drive into pony camp.
Slow drive. I will go down that driveway at like 5 kilometers an hour. You even told me how fast I need to go.
Really?
I don't think I'm yes. I was like, "You're getting in trouble, Mom." I'm like, "Oh my God, Mom, I'm too fast."
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's all fine. It's all fine. You have a slow drive into pony camp, and then you can get to find out what Sam was making at cooking camp today. So I'm really grateful to you for taking the time to talk to me today. And I cannot wait to get this conversation into Mama's ears around the world, because there are listeners from all over the place. So thank you. And I hope that people will connect with villageimpact.com or .org and with you and get involved, because what you guys are doing is really inspiring. So thank you.
And good luck on all your endeavors too. You've just announced your launch date, so make sure to put it in the comments below.
I will. I'll put it in the comments below. And that's what I'm doing this summer, is getting ready to launch the Mamafuel membership, because I want a place where mamas can go and just rest their hearts and feel like it's safe to be and to learn and to explore and to delight and glory and play. And I have so many good things planned, and I've been talking about it forever. So now I've just said it to you, which means I pretty much said it to Stu, which means now it has to happen.
Oh, now it's going to happen.
It's totally going to happen. Totally going to happen. Have a fabulous trip to Kenya. Enjoy. And I will link to your website. And when you start posting pictures, if you've got anything up on social media, I'll link to that as well when we publish the podcast.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
That's it for today's episode of Mamafuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join us, go to www.thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and make sure you say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate and leave a review. Every comment helps, and it is always a delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.